Well, Adam Peacock, it's good to see you again. I knew this was coming. Last time we had you on the Transformer Zoom call, we loved you so much. We said we got to have that guy back, and here you are. How you been?
I've been really well. It's 2026 already. It's hard to believe that we're already there. And I'm glad to be back. Thanks, Doug. I'm excited to have a chance to interact more with those who join us on these Transformer Zooms and are seeking God's heart for the places where they live.
Fantastic. Well, hey, you know what? There are a few people, though, that maybe weren't on the last Zoom that are now going to be on this Transformer Zoom call. I'm actually going to back it up one further step than I think I told you I was going to. You know what? I'm so intrigued by Feathervine. You serve in a ministry. You used to pastor a single local church, but now you have grown your heart for the broader community. To tell us a little bit about Feathervine first and your heart there, and then maybe just roll right into. We've got a lot of people on the call right now that really have a heart for their own communities, and your heart for community transformation is so deep and wide and strong. Share your heart about that as well, if you would, but include Feathervine. We'd love to hear that vision of your organization as well.
All right, Doug, so much. Like this is a Zoom in itself. So I'll just try and give you some real quick responses. That one, I was born and raised in Sonoma County. I love this place. I have such a clear sense of God calling me here. And, I really believe, God uses all of us very powerfully individually. He wants to. But I think that it takes a community to reach a community in certain ways. And certainly, as I have looked at how God has moved in different ways in the nations and in different cities and communities, I've seen often that it wasn't like one church that contained all of the revival, as it were. And so, I think sometimes God gives us problems that are bigger than a single person, or bigger than a single family, or even bigger than a single congregation, because He's trying to bring us together to represent Him in a beautiful way, right? That's certainly the testimony of the New Testament church that we read about in the Bible. So I'll say this, that all of us have things in our house that are too big to lift alone. So what do? We call our friends over, we gather around that thing, and we lift on three. And that's part of the story of Feathervine, is that in Sonoma County, there were a lot of people gathered around different problems that we had, but we didn't really know how we fit with one another, and we certainly didn't know how to lift together on three. And so Feathervine is this ministry in the church that serves to bring congregations, followers of Jesus together around needs and opportunities in our community. And I kind of serve as that person who's got the trust to help people find where they fit, and then to say, let's live together on three. Let's impact our school system by living together on three, lifting together on three. Let's meet the needs of a disaster by lifting together on three. Let's let's proclaim Jesus loudly by singing together on three, right? This is kind of the stuff that Feathervine is about, that you can see it puts a smile on my face.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can also imagine in my mind as you're just talking, like I'm just thinking about in my own community, what could be accomplished. I like when we
Yes.
all come together, like you say, and lift on three to meet these needs or to address these things that pop up. Boy, I tell you, that is a wonderful vision. And you are a practitioner of that in your own community. So that's why we're here today talking about the next Transformer Zoom call. And the intention of our conversation here today is to tease the audience, whoever might be watching
Yes.
this message, to join us on the next call where you will be the speaker. And that call, just to get that out right away, is on Thursday, February the 5th. That's next Thursday, February the 5th, and it starts at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And we are going to be talking about a subject that's very dear to your heart, prayer walking. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about prayer walking and what you're going to share on that day to just intrigue and entice people to join us on the call.
Yeah, Doug, this is a passion point for me. It's a huge part of what we're doing here in Sonoma County. And people are probably maybe have heard of prayer walking before, they're familiar with it. In the very simplest way, it's kind of being out in the community and praying as we're walking. But I'm really excited to give people more of a theological understanding of it, and then just a lot of practical insight. We'll probably be talking a bit about Acts 17. In this story, Luke kind of unpacks for us Paul's experience in Athens. In When Paul speaks on Mars Hill at the Areopagus, this preaching that he gives is considered by some one of the most amazing ways of like addressing a city and its needs. But what's so cool is that Luke not only shows us the content of the preaching, he shows us the process of preparing the preacher. And what we see is that it was in a prayer walk in Athens that God began to open Paul's eyes to what he wanted him to say to the leaders of that city. I'll boil it down like this: God wants us to learn how to see the city so we can speak to the city. And prayer walking is an incredible way that God has given us to begin to see a city, not just to understand its problems or its cool things or even take in its natural beauty, but to see the story of that place and how God wants to intersect with it for his glory. So I'm thrilled to talk about this. I really believe that prayer walking should be a foundation stone in every city reaching movement, because it brings us into a way of not only interacting with that place, but beginning to see God's heart for that place and how God sees that place.
That's wonderful too, and I'm glad we're shining a light on that through the lens of Paul's experience. It's because I'm prayer walking. You say prayer walking to some people, and like you said, it's kind of overlooked. It's kind of oh yeah, prayer walking. Yeah, that means walking around, and there's so much more to it than that. And you start carving up, like even just the way Paul addresses the men of Athens. He goes, "Men of Athens, I see that you're very religious," and he's sort of open hearted right away.
Yes.
He's not in there like
Yes.
condemning their idols, and he's actually trying to find the common ground. And this is like that's the first line of Acts 17, right? I mean, and then there's so
That's
much
right.
more in there as well. So you unpacking that for a bit, I think is going to kind of put that deeper in our hearts and bring that light that you're talking about to the subject itself.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. We've been practicing this for years in our community, and so we're learning experientially some ways that God uses it. But He's also just opening our eyes. Walking with God is the Scripture's most used metaphor for a faithful life with God in all the Bible, and so there's a lot there for us. And I believe that often when we prayer walk in our community, it's not just kind of God showing us, here's a problem to fix, here's a problem to fix, here's a problem to fix. It's also just Him being at work in our own hearts so that as we speak, and I love how you're just talking about Paul, that we are prepared to be the messengers God wants us to be, so that the hearts of those we're speaking to can really be touched by his spirit. And I think that also, he wants to give us a love for the place where we're trying to reach. And this is a great way to see that happen, just by being out and begin to appreciate it, slowing down a little bit. We go so fast in our culture. Sometimes we don't really see what's going on. So there's so much here to unpack. Doug, one of the things we'll be doing on the Zoom is I'll be giving people an opportunity to kind of consider some follow-up participation. We're planning a webinar, a cohort. This is some new stuff that we're developing through our work together with Community Action Council. So there's a lot to engage with, and I want to encourage everyone to be with us on February 5th.
I would not want to miss it, not even for the world. Come on, let's be there, folks. Okay, so it's Thursday, February the 5th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. To register, we're going to make sure you have a link to register. You just send an email out. It's real easy to get on board. And if you are registered and can't make the call, you can even get the video sent to you after the fact. So there's no reason not to register and get on board here and participate in the next Transformer Zoom call on Thursday, February the 5th. Adam, thanks so much. I'm so looking forward to seeing you then. And until then, God bless you, brother.
Thanks, Doug. God bless you and all those who are tuned into your community.
Thanks so much. See you then.
We're crying out for the church to be the church in the community.
The ecclesia is a relational model that God has been calling forward.
Being present is about showing up on a regular basis.
So I'm convinced that God will birth a love in one's heart for the place He has put you in. And sometimes that requires a process. Sometimes we don't initially love the place where we are or where God is sending us, but we respond in obedience.
And I believe there must be the restoration of the cry of God in the heart of us as leaders to cry out to God for our cities.
And for those of you who have a heart for your local community, then I would encourage you to participate in what we call Transformer Calls, focused on your engagement and the love that you have for your communities.